right, Lwazi, I'm born and bred in KZN. Well, I was born in Durban from an artistic family. My father was an activist. At the same time, he did theater. My father acted in Ushaka Zulu. Friends with Abombongeni Ngema. I grew up in a house where there was always like jazz music, the likes of Obo Gumete in Durban at the time. So it was a mixture. My family was a mixture of activism within the arts as well, using the arts for that. I love telling stories. I've always wanted to do documentaries. And then I decided, you know what, I want to enroll in varsity. This is in 2013. And what I want to get into is content. And within content, I position myself now. I look at what kind of content do I want. I love telling stories. I've always wanted to do documentary. I enrolled at University of Unisa. I decided I'm going to do international relations because it's a pool of content. Now, if I want to be able to grab different types of current affairs, across the world, I need to study something. It's no point me studying something that's going to keep me carrying a camera. I need to understand how content is made. I need to understand my country's interests and my country's needs, strengths, and weaknesses so that I can better position myself to get the type of content that will be relevant, And I learned even more about, countries' interests, about human dynamics, about African politics, international politics. My major is international politics, by the way. I was lucky while I was working for the Four Seasons. And then I meet the manager, the vice president for National Geographic, and he has a master's in international relations. The same year I meet KaMaqele, and I've always looked up to her because of how she's managed to just connect South Africa to the world and the quality of the content. And I met her, had a conversation with her, and then it just all became clear to me. Then that year, I did very well in my studies. Everything took shape, and here I am today, man. I got into radio the following year through a friend of mine. The Department of Education has got their curriculum is called the CAPS curriculum. And so little do most people know that they've got an online portal where on CAPS, the curriculum, you kids can go in there from grade 1, in fact, grade R to your matric. It's a curriculum. So you can go in there, get your study materials. It's everything that has to do with education. And the best part is it's a radio station by the Department of Education. So again, now I just wanted to read news at the time because I was like, I need to be able to get content. And if I can get into any newsroom, it will just give me access to content. I apply, I send them a show reel. I send them a demo. I record the news, different topics, and I send it to them. And they say, listen, we want to put face to the voice. I come through, we have a conversation with the station manager, and she hires me on the spot. I tell them straight, I want to read the news. I'll do the reporting, everything. They say, fine. Can you come on Monday? I'm like, perfect. This was Saturday. I had an interview. Monday I come in, and the presenter's not there. And I'm not sure if this was them tricking me or what. Presenter's not there. They're like, listen, there's a 3-hour show. Yeah. Please, just do best. There's the script. And I went in, man, and the rest was history. This was in 2018, 2017, and I've been there. I was there till 2019 when I joined Caxton Local Media. Now, they own most of the publications, like your U magazine at the time, Bona magazine. But now I go there 2019. Why? I was actually headhunted. I knew a lady that did advertising in Caxton, and she had actually was somebody that had recommended that I go do radio, and she literally positioned me. Little did I know that Caxton was moving from print to digital. Remember when there was that whole big thing when newspapers were falling off the shelves, no one was buying? Yeah, with the finally the country going digital. Caxton now went digital. They opened a radio, a division for radio, which was part of digital. So within their what they did was they took their newspapers, they made them available digitally. That's the first thing they did. The second thing, they realized, okay, cool. If people are not buying that hard print, what else can people do to access news? People are not reading newspapers, but people are using their mobile devices and people are using their ears, right? So it's more now like, okay, how do we tap back? What sense of hearing can we use? What medium? And radio was just a no-brainer because of how affordable it was to launch it online, which is what you see happening now, right? There's this whole rush for digital now. There's a whole rush for skills within the digital market. I bought my first digital camera in 2012, and I shot my first documentary in 2012, and I launched it online at the same year on Co-op TV. They're like a Cape Town-based online television. Back at the time, online was tiny. It was in 2011, 2012. Online was very tiny, you know. I don't even think SABC had an online channel like they do now on YouTube, yeah. And so I kept innovating. Now, the reason for that, I kept innovating was because of my studies. International relations, something people don't understand. People in media, content producers, don't understand that studying content, studying how to make content doesn't teach you content. You still need to go out there and understand where content comes from, you know, and that's what international relations does. It opens you up to different regions of the world, what their interests are, what our country's interests are, and how the relations between countries determine whether a country is successful or not, or where you are, who you are aligned to. It shaped my way of thinking. It shaped the way I look at content. It shaped the way I look at the country, you know, my responsibility. I wanted to reposition myself in terms of, everybody, even the FMs have got an online platform that no matter how aggressively they're going into it, they're like Bashiana, you know, some are ahead and some are really not. You know what I'm saying? And you'll see your commercial radio stations are very much at the forefront, and that's because, you know, there's not much interruptions in terms of profit, shareholders, and advertising. Whereas with your SABC, which is something I've been very openly vocal about, even when I was working at Caxton, that with the SABC, it's lack of innovation. Simple. And what causes that is them, as much as they're aware of the times, because politicians are aware of the times, they have an inability to innovate with the times. Now, that's also based on their interests. Again, I understood that it's all about the interests. I'm the one who waste time with the public broadcaster, which is in disarray currently, and then, you know, hopefully one day I get in. No, let me innovate. So I focused on my digital platform, which is doing great. I managed to put together my YouTube channel was always there. I just never gave it any attention. I went back on it, did a short course on digital marketing, data analytics, market reach. I'm currently working on algorithms for data analytics and how to understand or assess the market by views, you know, listeners, audience, measurements, and all that, which assisted me in understanding numbers and how numbers and the buyers of the content work hand in hand. It got me out of my comfort zone because now I needed starting to think about numbers and averages and so forth. So that's where I am now. I'm learning how to what buyers look for in content.
But what I like about in what you're saying, and reference to what you were saying in the SABC and not really being innovative,
yeah,
and moving with the times. If I look at the thread of your story, from someone who grew up within the theatre and jazz or arts environment, you've made it almost a point to really keep discovering more and just keep learning and elevating your understanding within the space you're operating. Because you're saying you moved from studying content to international labor relations, which I can see, what that exposed you in terms of tapping in and understanding, curating not only a local perspective, but things that you could actually export outside the country.
Exactly. You've just explained it better than I could have. That's what I've always wanted to do. Like, yeah, things that I can export outside the country and things that will be appealing to them in such a way that, because overseas countries like to exchange. That's what they call it. If you come with content that resonates, it's they're gonna want to respond back. Either way. Whether it's through conflict or whether it's through agreement, and that's always a relationship. And that's content.
Absolutely. And I think just staying abreast of the time, because I feel like, especially in the climate we're in terms of COVID, you like basically in the story right now, you've embodied moving with the time, but more than that, thinking ahead. Because I think it's hella foresight for you to decide, no, you know what, you've been doing radio, you actually want to focus more on your digital presence. If I'm looking at the times, exactly, radio is one thing that's always existed. And looking at the current listenership, because obviously there's more young people than older people in the world. And if we look at what we actually consume content out of, which platform we actually consume content out of, it's more digital. So for you to really, to really have that foresight in deciding, no, you know what, you've tapped into this, you actually want to focus more on driving content in terms of digitally, because you can see that's where it's going. That's crazy. That is crazy. For anyone who's just listening to your stories, is just amazing. For anyone who's actually thinking about going into the same space as you, who is studying, what would you advise them?
That's a good question. And what makes that a good question is that most students only think about that question when they've graduated, when it's like, oh, the job market is like this. What I would encourage people who are studying, especially media, is besides the fact that you need to research, I think you need to research with whatever it is you're doing. What people need to do is they need to understand the world not 10 years behind, not where we're coming from. Everybody knows where they come from. Times have changed. What's important is where we're going. Reason being, places that are excelling the most in the world are not places that have been the richest in the last 400 years. China has proved that, and some Eastern nations, and some countries like your Rwandas, you know. So what's important is where we're going,
Sure.
Where the world is going to be in 2030, where the world is going to be in 2040, and you need to see yourself there. Now, once you start thinking that way, automatically your mind starts being inquisitive about what it is that could be, you know. Then you start teaching yourself to discover. I've always said this, life is about discovery. Reason being, I got so annoyed some years back in terms of how content and presenters were being recycled at the SABC, only to realize that what was the inevitable. And that compromises content. Why? We're not discovering anything new. We're not learning anything new. We're not absorbing anything new. It becomes a norm, which is something that I'm against, especially within content, because again, content is responsible for directing a nation. Content is responsible for driving a common vision, for breaking divisions, for fixing conflict. You know, just to get people to think a certain way. You don't have to influence people, just for them to believe in something. Some of the greatest nations today are not because, and I'll use China again, it was not because they had democracy, 40 different parties, you were free to do whatever. I'm not saying I'm against freedom, but it was because after starvation, something people don't know, China almost died from starvation, like wiped out. They decided that this is what we're going to do. They had democracy. They were colonized by the British. They had many parties they could vote for. They said, listen, guys, we're dying out. What's the one thing that we can do? And what China did, their president, a short man, not Mr. Mao, there's another one, I just forgot his name. I forgot his name. A short man. He decides now, okay, fine. We've been living like this, but it's not working for us. What we need to do, we need to travel the world. Let me go outside and see. And he went to Japan. And Japan at that time was the second biggest economy in the world, but they had different ideals to the Americans. You catch my drift. And when he got there, he saw how much incorporating culture and where the world is going, not where the world was, will get you civilized quicker, will get you involved in the world market, will get you people knowing that if we focus on one thing, our interests don't have to be the same. But if we have one common national vision, in the next 10, 20 years, we can be there. What's the difference between China and some African countries? When you speak to African countries, and it's a problem with us even Otaki, you speak to them to find out why they are where they are or where they're going. Or in fact, you ask them, where do you see yourself? They're going to give you a reason that is not satisfactory if they don't tell you about their past. But more chances are the second question is going to be a why. Why don't you sound convinced? Then they're going to tell you about their past. It's either did not have enough money for school. It's either this. It's always past related. We celebrate. We've got so many holidays that are based on our past. There is no single day for 4th IR. The third industrial revolution passed us, South Africa. We never grasped it because some app, but they can send money. But the app, I understand. Do you know what that does for civilization as a country? We've missed the third industrial revolution, and China went through the same thing. But I'll tell you what they did. They also missed the civilization. They missed the industrial civilization, China. They missed it. So what they did was they realized we've missed the second. There's no ways we're going to miss the third. So China went and did one exam for everyone, for the whole country. They said one exam. This exam will help us gauge the literacy level of the nation on average. Then those that meet the criteria all go into varsity, where the education system will be catered in such a way that the elder people can study at night. Those that are young enough, I think if you're below 21 or something, you go straight into varsity, and we will bridge whatever it is you're lacking on. But because the national vision was technology and manufacturing, we will teach you manufacturing, we will teach you engineering. And that was a future way of thinking. Most African countries that are poor, or most organizations that are stuck in challenges. Look at the SABC, for example. Why isn't it innovating? Because all their problems, mission is to fix the past. And it's about, no, let's have a commission about this. So it's even our country, we've spent the last 2 years or last 3 years, or however many, trying to fix the past.
Yeah.
So it's we need to shift the way we think. We need to just and that's just that.
Now that's someone that's thinking of getting and I love how you just drop, the time in terms of just 360 thinking and just really thinking ahead. Now, for someone who's actually has a year or two within the media space and is looking for growth, what would you advise them?
Understand how media is going to change. You need to understand how people are consuming media.
Sure.
You don't look at how much you can earn, how much promotion. Most people who are gaining, do you know that most people who are calculating promotion at the SABC 5 years ago, where do you think they are today? They're all over the show. They're all over the show trying to do their own thing. Digital is now being called, I'm doing my own thing. You're not. You are only now learning to innovate. Most of them are only now learning to create content.
Sure.
Most of them are only now learning how apps can help you function, how to build your own portal. So whoever's got 2 years left now, know where the world is going to be in the next 10 years. Go into the World Economic Forum, go into the African Union, go into your countries. Every country, South Africa has got not the National Development Plan, it's called an infrastructural development plan, an independent development plan. 3 years. It's a 3-year plan a country generally has. It involves things like infrastructure, immediate things like education, what we're tweaking. All departments have got objectives. Agriculture has got certain objectives which are linked to things like the weather, food production, health. That links to demand. You understand demand and supply. You see, so understanding that and what means of production and technology are we going to use in the next 5 years? If you got 2 years left, because in the next 5 years you would have only started. You only been 3 years of experience. And those of us that have worked know that 3 years is nothing. There are people who have got 10 years experience, no promotion, they're stuck in one place. Why? Because they cannot innovate. That's why our government is the biggest outsourcer of technology. We outsource everything. We outsource. We can't even build an app that works for the Home Affairs department, so that not everybody needs to go to Home Affairs. Why? Sure. Because IT people are not at the Home Affairs. Home Affairs, you will find people that don't understand innovation. Those are real examples. Those are and unless we find real solutions to real examples of the future, which is where the world is going, young people need to go ahead.
Sorry, just to add to, and I think another point to just add to what you're saying is perfect example you've just. If you look at how government entities work as opposed to corporate. The government has a lot of red tape that I don't think is no longer applies. You do something in private, you do something in 2 weeks that will take a month. in the public setting, and you ask yourself why.
Exactly. It's lack of innovation. Lack of innovation.
And sure, that's crazy. And I like the fact that you seem like a person that understands the space you work in. Because in engaging that you said you work with the record labels as well, but within it, you understand Samuel, you understand the compilation of music, you understand basically the food chain and how that works, and it's better than most artists that I would add to looking at it. So that's people that either are looking to that are studying media, that are in media. Anyone that because I know a lot of people, I like that the fact that we had this edition. There's a lot of people that either have an interest in I might say radio specifically, don't know where to start, don't know how to go about it, and I think there's an illusion that it's easy to get into. Yeah, nah. What would you advise those people, and what light would you shed on that?
I'll give them advice that I took and I tried myself. Go record yourself. Go record yourself reading the news. Something that's very simple. Go read a newspaper, or in fact any content that excites you. In fact, let me not say don't go reading the news. It's gonna help them understand themselves. They need to think about themselves. What are my strengths and weaknesses? It depends on that. Now go for something that you enjoy talking about. Go for something you enjoy researching.
Sure.
That will stimulate you and you'll be excited presenting it. And then you need to go record yourself. You have to do this, guys. CVs don't work anymore. We live in an area where even meeting face to face is no more the thing. So do yourself a favor. And again, digital marketing comes into the space. Brand yourself, record yourself for I think it's 30 seconds to a minute, record yourself doing a throw forward for whatever content or a coming up, for whatever content that you are interested in. It will show in your voice. It will tell that they might not know much about what they're saying, but they're excited talking about it, which means that they will be excited researching it,
True.
Because exactly, and then record it and then send it through to your, don't go to your major commercial radio stations. I'll be honest, this is not, you don't want to go through the whole idols thing. It's tormenting. They're not nice people. They're holding on to their jobs. They don't know what the future holds. We hear it in the news the whole time, and I hope that we're going to be the people that will assist SABC to change. We here, we're the future. However, I'm not going to lie to young people now and say, no, go digital and then look for community radio stations. What I was reading the radio awards for this year.
Sure.
The biggest winners were your commercial radio stations, which are smaller, and it was your community radio stations and campus radio stations. Campus community radio stations were the biggest takers of all. Reason being, they are more focused on a certain market. So if we are servicing Mpumalanga, Emalahleni, the content here is mainly about Mpumalanga and Emalahleni. So we keep it focused. That trains any young person coming into the industry. It gives them one thing to focus on. So your focus doesn't get deviated then when you go into a big corporate. So let's say if they say to you, you will be a news researcher, for example, that they're going to give you enough time and nurturing to focus on that. The amount of pressure you'll be under will not be as much, and the type of coaching that you will get will be so much more significant, because they don't look at it as it's a job for you. They look at it as it's a stepping stone. Community radio stations, because of our lack of knowledge, we think that they are just there to be a stepping stone. Again, it's because of lack of knowledge. If you don't know that they are the fastest growing, they are the most absorbed, it's the best place for you to understand how news or how content is built. You cannot go start producing news for 20 million South Africans when you don't know what content does to 100 people. So young people, go to those community radio stations. Most communities now, all communities have got community radio stations. It's just that we don't go there. The church people go there. The Mpaqanga, the Maskandi people go there, and that's how they're able to reach those summer nominations. It's not because Numi YFM plays their music. It's not because of that. We know that the SABC is buying overseas music, you know. But you ask yourself, how do those guys sell so much? Afrikaans music sells, gospel music sells, Maskandi sells. How is it? It's because of those community radio stations. Community radio stations teach communities about patriotism. They teach communities that you've got somewhere you can go to besides the police station to get your voice ahead. They're the closest point between the community and national, you know, because the communities make up the national. So it's a great place to start. Young people must go there because that's also where commercial and community radio stations are using online a lot, because they know that commercial, to get a license to go FM, costs something ridiculous like $1 million or something. And then you need to pay your Santec, which I don't understand because it's a government thing. So who can afford a 20 million rand satellite? The application process is 5 years. You don't understand? Who's got time for that? Again, it's anti-innovation. So young people are going to waste their time going there. Go for those smaller community radio stations. Go for commercial radio stations where they're about. If you're going to advertising, everybody wants to go into marketing and advertising. Go to your commercial radio stations. They are driven by profit and what do you call it? The consumer. So their focus is on how do you make media make money, right? And I learned this from Caxton. When I got into Caxton, they told me straight, you will determine your salary. The content you bring, the sales you bring, how radio makes money. I know how radio makes money now. I did not know it before. I know that your sales need to be, you need to understand the type of show. You need to understand the station's LSM, which community, who are we speaking to? Not who's listening to us, who are we speaking to? It's two different things, you know. I like it because there's got so many people listening to me. Is it who you are speaking to? So now it makes you have to go out of here when you realize that I can't just sell to anybody. Then you realize I must now find my market. It helps you. It helps you. So that's the advice I would give young people today.
What kind of mentorship did you receive? Who were monumental figures in your life that you're still in touch with? What that's meant within your operating and the value of that in your life?
Oh man, it'll have to be, you know, when it comes to media. When it comes to me personally, it was my parents and my grandfather. You know what I mean? Like I lost my parents at a very young age. You know, so my grandfather raised us. Like he was just phenomenal in terms of him and my grand were together until death, but they were able to raise us with such principles that I use today. You know, the way he understood wealth, the way you understand, the way he was the first one out, the last one in, my grandfather, you know. So and understanding that you need to work it hard so that in the future you don't need to be knocking on doors, you know. So with that said, you know, that's personal. But in terms of media, it has to be Bob Mabena. I looked at how he did things, you know. It's looking at the discipline that he, you know, looking at the discipline he had from Uachi, and he left, he goes to the UK, and he carries on with his theater. And he carries on with his theater. And when he comes back, he's just even incredible. He hasn't lost it, you know. I've always looked up to him. I've always been shaped by Basetsana Kumalo's story. Like with the Tsolepelo Productions, their content, my man, like the way it was crisp, well organized, it's simple, you know. It doesn't change a lot of things, but her target marketing, she found a niche. She was not selling to the majority. If you understand the buyer.
Yes.
She knew her buyers, and they're not going to catch it. She kept innovating, and surrounded herself with people within the type of power she had. She could have easily fell into the great political ANC hole, which is pay back the money from the looters of the day. She could have easily, she had access to Nelson Mandela, bro, you know. She could have easily figured herself out in there, but she didn't. She built a business that was not for the majority. The buyers with the white people, you know, and she served it so well with such distinction that it built other shows. There are people who don't know that Basetsana produced Ipasela, which is an Afrikaans show. Now, if you, as a, you know our history as blacks with Africans, but if you can be so good that you can tell an Afrikaans person's story for SABC2 and they buy into it, the content, that's the person I want to be. And you need to look at how she dealt with bad publicity between her and Romeo Kumali. Outstanding, because they're still together today. You know, how she protected that family. Those are lessons that for me were just like priceless. And then I went on and I met her. So that was it sealed everything. So for me, those are the people that shaped my thinking. And if you look at those people today, they're not the rich. I want to just Selomag, I can tell you now, he's not the richest person, but he's the most outstanding. He's the most wealthiest in terms of the connections he's got across the world. He's able to walk into any theater and sit. He's able to get a call for the Lion King set. You understand the way he's handled them himself. And they never got themselves involved with the SABC shenanigans. You know, the SABC has pulled down a lot of great people. And I just think it takes that type of resilience and character. And that those are the people that I've looked up to.
This was quite insightful, and I think for it's going to be insightful for people across all career fields. The pulse you have in what you're doing, the scope and foresight you do everything you do with, you know what I mean, and the understanding of the value of the foundation. That's been amazing. So I want to thank you just for taking out the time to really have this conversation, and for being candid as well, because I feel like we don't hear this a lot.
Yeah.
Honest, no, we don't. We generally don't. It's always wish-washy. Study this, let me go.
Lack of vision.
Exactly.
Lack of vision.
Absolutely, but it's never a real conversation that actually gives you a perspective of what you're getting into, what it really takes, what it's going to mean for you to properly have longevity in what you're doing, and for you to actually survive.